All right. Peter, so good to see you again. To see you too, Gustav. It's a real pleasure for me and for the other guys as well. It's a great honor as well to have you here. So thank you. Thank you so much. And in this room where we practiced for so many times, and Nishi Maroshi had his group here since the 70s. Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So more than 50 years. I'm still going. Still going. Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah. That's fantastic. Great to be back here. So yeah, and thanks for sitting down like this. Sorry to put you through this awkward setting with a camera and it's a pleasure for me. It's like whoa. Yeah. So I wanted to just take the opportunity to ask 3 questions, and the first one is just what we were talking a bit about just before. We were lucky. We ended up practicing this sitting silently, this Zazen practice, and here we are still doing this. What can seem, for someone who hasn't tried it, can seem strange, can seem like a waste of time, like a weird thing to do, and we keep doing it. So I thought I should take the opportunity to ask you why you keep doing this. Yeah. Well, I think what happens to me is when I don't do it, I mean, because I've been doing this for a while, when I first started, I used to do it off and on. And I started to notice that the days that I didn't do it didn't seem to go as smoothly as the days that I did Zazen in the morning. Particularly in the morning, I'd go to work, I'd do Zazen, I'd go to work. Work seemed to go well. Well, not well, but relatively trouble-free in a sense, or I could deal with things a bit better. If problems arose, I was more kind of able to deal with them without getting too kind of caught up in things. But then some days I'd go to work without doing Zazen, and they didn't seem to go so well. I was less kind of able to kind of I think it gave me the Zazen kind of gave me a kind of a little moment there just to a little space before I react to situations. So I just saw the day to day that the days I do Zazen seem to go better than the days I don't. I seem to deal with things better. So I think that encouraged me to do Zazen like this. And so even now, the days I don't, sometimes I get up very late or whatever it is, and I don't do Zazen. And after a while, I noticed that, oh, look at you, I'm getting frazzled. I'm making the wrong decisions. Not big issues, just small little things. And then I realized, this is probably going to get worse. I better do some Zazen because it seems to work. So I think fundamentally, I feel that it works, that there's something to it that works. Do you think that's a large part of why, like the thing with it, that it gives you this little space between reacting and what's triggering something, and is that a large part of it in your experience? It is in my experience, and that's on one level. That's on that kind of just a day-to-day interaction. In other words, rather than kind of getting angry at home with something that happened with the kids or my wife or something like that, I have a little, okay, I can, I don't have to dive in and start complaining. I can just take a moment just to think about it. And that can kind of offset a whole lot of things that could have kind of, once you get angry, you're starting off a whole chain of actions and reactions. You're getting into a whole lot of different things that just takes your time and effort and energy, and not just you, but everybody. And then it can kind of people get bad feelings towards each other and all that. So that little, even though it's a very small, minor, in a sense, minor, you might have a second just to think about things. And you say, oh, okay, that's fine. Sure, look, that can happen to anybody. We all make mistakes. And just that dropping things, it prevents a whole lot of, it just kind of helps you avoid all those other kind of issues that can arise when people start fighting with each other. Just getting verbally Yeah, that was a stupid thing to do, you know, all that kind of stuff. And no, it wasn't. Then you do it, do it.
Mm.
And that bad feeling can extend through the day, you know. So I find that helpful. But on another level, it also the Zazen gives meaning to me personally in my life. You know, there's a deeper meaning to it as well. You know, I can see, okay, well, there's a good, there's also on a different level. It helps me kind of understand my existence, so to speak. You know, so I mean, there was a Tibetan book I read. I think it's a Tibetan book of the dead or something like that, and he was saying how this guy he decided he described, I think it was a Tibetan priest or the Tibetan saying, said, describing somebody like an old man who hasn't, what he said, found the truth. I think was the word he used, like an old man who found the truth, or someone who hasn't found the truth. An old man who hasn't found the truth is like a person fishing in a pond without any fish.
Mm.
You know, you're always fishing, but there's no fish is coming. So I think having just found some kind of meaning, what to me seems kind of meaningful, has kind of helped me more content, I suppose, in my day
Mm.
to day life. I feel like, okay, well, you know, things aren't perfect in a sense. Like, again, there's all this stuff happens, but at least on one level, I feel like I found something that's worthwhile
Mm.
for me to do. So in terms of Zazen, it's kind of opened up a new window to things that personally I hadn't understood or hadn't even imagined. There's a different, like, you know, these things about how our people are connected in a kind of a different way, you know. So I feel that that's kind of, that gives me kind of a certain amount of happiness to be able to experience that, you know, and just in a different ways. So I think that's nice. It kind of gives, in a sense, it helps, makes my life a bit brighter and kind of gives me more something to look forward to, in a sense. I'm quite cheerful, you know. I mean, you can kind of enjoy. I enjoy, I suppose, day to day stuff. So I don't know if I would have, if I hadn't started to do Zazen, I don't know. Maybe it would be the same anyway. I don't know, but I have a feeling that Zazen has kind of helped me just personal contentment on a contentment. So, and I think that thing, that image always sticks with me about the guy fishing in a pond without any fish. How you just kind of futile, you know. You kind of, you feel it a bit futile,
Right.
I guess. So that Zazen has kind of made me kind of feel quite fortunate to do this practice,
Mm.
and also that just the, the bigger, see the bigger picture in a sense.
Mm. So that fishing after the chasing those fishes in that pond without any fishes.
Yeah,
So that's yeah, that sounds familiar.
yeah. I mean, I've been
It
there, you
could.
know.
But do I understand you correctly? Like this practice has helped you relax a bit from the not chase that much after those fishes or wherever it is that we imagine to be in that pond, or
Definitely, yeah, yeah. I mean, there was, I think it was Brad Warner used to have a phrase. He used to say, I still says it, the great somewhere else.
Mm.
You know, we always, or I used to, I always imagine somewhere else was better than
Mm.
now or here or that kind of thing. So, you know, normally, I think naturally, we always imagine the greener hills far away, you know.
Mm.
But actually, just our kind of day to day life itself is can be quite nice, you know.
Yeah.
It's just that we have to change our perspective of it,
Mm.
how we look at our situation. I mean, I'm not saying I mean, everybody's situation is different, but
Mm.
you know, sometimes if we compare ourselves with the different situations and say, oh, if I was living in America, I could be doing this, or if I was living in Ireland, I could be doing that.
Mm.
That can bring a lot of unneeded, I suppose, I don't know what the word is, stress or
Mm.
anxiety or just unhappiness.
Mm.
Oh, you know, I'm here, stuck here.
Mm.
I should be over there. There, it's a lot easier over there, but that's not necessarily how it works. Yeah.
And of course, if someone is in a burning house, they need to get out, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is, I think, about something else, like some more constant running and chasing and fishing
Mm.
after things that, yeah, that makes us unwell, uneasy, and disconnected from each other, and
Yeah.
yeah, I've also, to me also, Zazen has done something
Mm.
in that space,
Mm.
changed the picture, or yeah, I think the same for me. That's a large part of what makes me come back to the practice all the
Mm.
time. The same for me. Some days I just don't say, run around some days. Unfortunately, I still do. But I keep coming back and
Yeah.
sitting down again. And
Yeah.
the other thing, speaking of connecting, we were just discussing, and we've been talking about that several times. But connecting across traditions,
Mm.
and for me, I ended up my spiritual home, so to speak, is in the Church of Sweden, while also practicing Zazen. And for you, growing up in Catholic
Mm.
Ireland,
Mm.
and finding your home in this setting and with this practice and in Buddhism. Um, so I don't know, but it seems that people find this um, silence and this stopping and sitting down, and what Zazen is about, it seems to be found in different forms and ways. And to me, the meeting of Christianity and Buddhism is unbiased, because it's become a central part of my life. But it seems to me that there's something important going on there. There's something there, and it makes me um, committed to exploring it. I'm not sure exactly what it is that's there, but I don't know if what your experiences are, or reflections on this meeting of Buddhism and Christianity.
Oh,
If there's something that you've.
yeah. I think it's. I honestly think it's a very good. I think they complement each other.
Hmm.
That's my own opinion. So I think Christianity has a lot of excellent things to offer people. Including myself. I really appreciate Christianity. My problem was is I wasn't necessarily I didn't necessarily have faith.
Mm,
So not that I didn't like Christianity, but I just didn't believe it
mm,
in a sense, right? So the Buddhist side of it kind of brought me a bit closer to the faith aspect of
mm,
I don't know the faith or the idea that there is a kind of a truth, so to speak. That
mm,
I thought there was no kind of universal truth. I thought it was just there was nothing.
right.
But doing the Zazen kind of brought me in more into kind of or I got to the point where I realized, oh, there is more going on than I was aware of.
Mm,
There is a kind of there seems to be a kind of a universal truth, so to speak. So how you define that, whether it's from a Christian perspective or a Buddhist perspective, it doesn't really matter in a sense. I mean, on an individual level, obviously people say, well, our God is better than your God and all that. That causes hassle, right? But on another level, it's just, you know, we've a truth, and there's a truth here and a truth
mm,
there, and more than likely it's the same. But I don't know how, I honestly don't know how Christian monks, for example, would have viewed what they would call the truth and things like
mm,
that. So maybe it was just more, was it more mental kind of that and things like that. But I guess they, like people in monasteries, experience, like Christian monasteries or Buddhist monasteries, I imagine they experience the same thing. That's what I presume. Like, I mean, maybe they interpret it differently.
mm,
So I think probably the Buddhist practice, I would say, kind of would be more grounding. Like this Zazen would be more grounding, perhaps, than the Christian prayers. But I might be wrong. Like I don't know. But I think Christianity also has a lot of good things to offer Buddhism. Like it kind of love thy neighbor as yourself. It's more kind of socially active. I guess I might be wrong, but so I think Buddhism can learn a lot from Christianity. So I think it's a very good combination. I don't think they're. I mean, obviously there will be people who will say, "Oh, they're completely different," but I don't think so. And I think Buddhism traditionally, when it moved to a country like Tibet or
Mm.
where was it, China, it kind of interacted with the native tradition, the Bon tradition in Tibet, or in China, it was probably the Taoism, and it took hundreds of years. It wasn't just in it. So probably in Europe, for example, there's a certain amount of that, it's not a huge amount, but it kind of Christianity and Buddhism, there's not a huge gap between what they're kind of essentially about,
Right.
I presume. So obviously, if you take the extremes, they are like, oh, that's completely different. But I think the middle ground is very.
Mm.
It must be pretty much not much difference, is there? Like the people who come to go to church and the people who go to Buddhist practice, a lot of them would have the same view of the world, like so.
Yeah, I mean, they're both very broad traditions. So if you take the extremes, you can always find huge differences, and they are in like their core narratives, of course, different uh, traditions. For me, as we spoke about earlier, for me it was I was so stuck in my head about Buddhism being grounding. Like I was in my teens analyzing the Lord's Prayer, the biblical text. Like, is this true? Is this and I got stuck in that, and Zazen practice got me back in my body. My knees hurt. I need to go to the toilet or whatever. Like, it was very, very much body.
Yeah.
Like it helped me come down from my
Yeah. Spiritual kind of.
yeah. I was a bit lost in that. It's important, of course,
Yeah.
but it doesn't help me come down to the tatami mats
Yeah.
again, to the basics. Yes,
Yeah.
that was important, and it also helped me kind of approach language in the prayers or the liturgy in the church in a more uh, experience way. Like, I came back. I appreciated that more later, but Jesus says, "Come with me and see." And I like that approach. I didn't have that approach in my teens. I was very analyzing intellectually, but come and see, basically. So Zazen helped me like connect with that and to relate to language in a different way. I think more like the classic pointing finger story.
Yes.
Like, it's not about the actual finger, but what it's pointing at. So those, those things were important for me from Buddhism and Zazen practice. And then also, times of experiences in sitting still and yeah, it's difficult to put words on it, but experiences that I liked what you said about, yeah, there is some kind of truth in some ground of being, as I like um, I'm losing the English words, but Paul Tillich, she talked about the ground of God is the ground of being. Like, there is some grounding truth to things, and but also that I can't stay in those experiences all the time, those spiritual experiences or whatever. So when I come back to the everyday messiness of things, I kind of need well, I like to live within a narrative, or like a story or a faith kind of that puts flesh on the idealistic spiritual things. So I've been in the church for a long time now, and I enjoy kind of living in that narrative all the time with the services and the liturgy and the prayers and so forth. But it's a different approach than what I had when I was a teenager, when I had to analyze every word, that the words themselves must be true and so forth. And the approach I enjoy now goes well along together, I feel, with Zazen practice.
Mm.
And
But probably when you were a teenager, that was the right approach, though. As a teenager, you have to, you're just learning things, you're just finding out. So you have to be careful and investigate and make sure what's going on.
absolutely.
So I think that was probably when you were a teenager, you had the right attitude, rather than just accepting everything,
Yeah.
you doubted a certain amount or just wanted to confirm it. And so I think you did well, I'd imagine, to get to do what you did. So
Everything has its time,
yeah,
basically. And yeah, I think you're right. And I'm so happy that I'm not a teenager anymore.
yeah, not now.
So I just wanted to ask you one last thing, the opportunity. Well, and I'm sorry to end with such a serious question, but we were also talking before about the state of the world,
Mm,
and the news, all the violence, the wars that we don't know, are they escalating or what's happening, conflicts, polarization, and so forth. And I've been reflecting lately on well, in part, the Zazen practice, or the space for silence, whether it's in meditation or in prayer, a space for silent or being silent together with others, and also religion and spiritual practice in general. In what sense it can be a force, uh, a resource for a less violent world.
mm.
That's a huge question, but I just wanted to invite you to share, if you like, some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, it's important that it exists, like these kind of religious or Buddhist, or that these practices are there for people.
Mm.
First of all, it's an option if people are looking for something. So these are available.
Mhm.
Whether a lot of people access them or not is that's up to the individual. But I think that human beings are coming back to it. I mean, I will come back to
Mm.
this in due course. I mean, it may not be Buddhism. It may be some other type of eh, space that they look for. But so I think it's important that they're there, and then people can, when the time comes for them, they can check it out. But I do think that, like, it's not just you and me. The whole world, or most of the world, doesn't like all this wars and
Mm.
fighting and violence, and nobody likes it. But very few people like it. So I think that the majority of people don't agree with it. So I think it's eventually the majority will move in that direction. So at the moment, I think we're kind of in a transition where all this stuff has happened over the last 10 or 20 years. But I think there will also come. There's after this transition, people will move in a different direction. And I remember Nishijima Roshi telling me quite clearly. He said when the USSR and the USA there was a Cold War going on. He was back, I think it was back in the 70s and 60s, 70s, 80s even. He was convinced that the world is going to end. He told me, he said, look, I was sure that they were going to blow us all up. So he was like with the nuclear bombs. So he was very, encouraged when this, the Berlin Wall fell and all that kind of stuff happened. So I guess like, it didn't look like that for a long time, but eventually things changed. The USSR split up, and there was peace for a long time. But obviously, we've moved into another phase of something or other now. But his opinion was that eventually that there would be kind of one major force in the world
Mm.
that will, like, it might take hundreds of years, that will kind of keep security in the world, like that there'll be, that all these wars and so on is a kind of a process of just coming to a kind of a point where people won't be fighting anymore. That's his opinion. But I don't know, like the time span could be a long time. So it's like, in a sense, just kind of sorting out this kind of very complicated situation. But So I think you have to be hopeful about it, even though nobody likes what's going on. It's horrible, you know. So, but I think that the human beings are better than that.
Mm,
That's without a doubt. I mean, even just ordinary people you meet in the street, talk to any of them. How many people support all that stuff?
mm,
It's just minuscule. Like, you know, well, I'm sure there's a few. There are obviously people do, but majority of people don't like it,
mm,
and that's what I think wins out eventually. I might imagine so. And the young people don't like it. Most of them, you know, they're not. They don't approve all that stuff. So
mm,
but we just have to be, deal with all this. I guess just how to get through all this currently. This stuff with the
mm,
Ukraine and the Gaza and
mm,
Iran and Sudan, isn't it? There's a few other.
mm,
So yeah, nobody likes it. I don't
mm.
think.
You're right. That's hopeful. But
Yeah,
most people are longing for something else. They
yeah,
want something
yeah.
that's not
This is
violence and suffering.
yeah. So there are individual, I don't know, dictators and things like that, but
Mm,
they eventually they're overturned or they pass away or they're defeated and all this stuff. So
mm.
yeah,
I hope it's going in the right direction
yeah,
for peace and we were also talking about before that traveling can be a factor in that. To
mm,
travel, to meet, to see how things work differently in other places and
yeah,
cultures and
yeah,
families. And I'm extremely grateful to be able to visit here again.
yeah. Well, it's
And thanks so much for the friendship during the years and decades.
yeah. Well, no, it's my honestly, it's a pleasure for me. I mean, I've learned so much from you, Gustav. So I want to thank you. Just your genuine presence and your kindness, and I mean, you've taught me a lot just how to deal with the world and people, and it's just your attitude is so refreshing.
Likewise, making me blush here.
Thank you, Peter. No, thank you, Gustav. It's great to see you again.
Let's go for a meal.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.